This webinar is being made available through the collaboration of the Florida Department of Children and Families Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health and the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association. Please note that as an attendee, you are in listen-only mode and will only be able to view your name. If you have questions, please send them to the presenter and me by using the Q&A panel. The button to open the panel is usually located on the upper right side of your monitor. Please use the Q&A panel to send any questions you may have as you think of them, and the presenters will address them as time permits. Our audio is broadcast through the internet to your computer. If you experience poor computer audio, there are a few options to try on screen right now, and these options are actually posted in the chat panel. If you continue to experience poor audio through your computer, try rejoining the webinar and call in using the telephone I will call in option. You must be connected to the audio of this presentation and view it on screen as well to receive a certificate of attendance. The recording and materials used in today's presentation will be available on the FADA website within 30 business days. One helpful hint is the archived video displays what looks like to be an error message, but it's only a delay buffer, so you just need to ignore it, hit play, and enjoy. To access the recording and PowerPoint, you will go to www.fada.org, and under the Resource Center Training Library, you will find the materials, and again, it's within 30 business days. FADA produces many webinars and workshops through the support of the Florida Department of Children and Families. To help participants track credits earned through attendance, we host an online community that provides a personalized digital journal where participants can maintain statements of credit for webinars and workshops taken through the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association. At the end of today's webinar, the web browser will direct everyone to an evaluation form on the FADA website. You will first need to register or sign in to your account to complete the evaluation. Information you provide FADA as part of registering remains confidential. Statements of credit will be posted within 5 business days after the evaluation closes in individual professional development journals for persons completing the evaluation and attending the full webinar. Completing the evaluation is necessary to receive CE credits or to access your statement of credit. Please note that the evaluation for this webinar will close at midnight on Friday, May the 8th. 1 to 2 continuing education credits are available for participating in today's webinar for persons licensed through the Board of Nursing, the Board of Clinical Social Work, Marriage and Family Therapy, and Mental Health Counseling, and for persons credentialed through the Florida Certification Board. If you are a licensed healthcare practitioner, be sure to include your Florida license number for reporting to CE Broker when you register with our site for the first time. If you are certified with the Florida Certification Board or licensed outside of the state of Florida, you do not need to provide your certification number when you register with our site. Note please that WebEx monitors your arrival and departure of attendance and provides a report upon completion of the event. We are not permitted to provide contact hours or a certificate of attendance if you do not attend the entire webinar. We are not permitted to provide partial credit. And with that being said, I'd like to welcome Tim and Darius as our presenters. Tim Devitt works with Thresholds. He's the Associate Vice President of Clinical Operations. He's a clinician, trainer, consultant, researcher, and executive leader with a 30-year commitment to recovery-oriented treatment and support. Mr. Devitt has presented nationally and co-authored 17 peer-reviewed journal articles and a book chapter on the integration and implementation of mental health and substance use treatment. He is a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, and his leadership roles at Thresholds, which is a large recovery services organization in Chicago. He has overseen an array of community-based programs, including integrated mental health and substance use, permanent supported housing, center-based recovery, clubhouse programming, assertive community treatment, and substance use outpatient and intensive outpatient programming with the attention to increasing access for marginalized populations through outreach, engagement, and peer support and arrest deflection. And Darius McKinney, he's a statewide IPS program manager with the Illinois Department of Human Services Division of Mental Health. Darius has been directly and indirectly helping people with serious mental illnesses find and maintain work at regular jobs of their choosing for the past 19 years, using the evidence-based practice of individual placement and supported employment. Darius contracted Division of Mental Health IPS trainer for 5 years. As an IPS trainer, he was responsible for executing and fulfilling all deliverables for their DMH contract to advise and assist IPS sites in Northern Illinois to implement, provide, and improve IPS services to consumers. Darius has served as the project manager for the Illinois Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration Transformational Mental Health Grant for Employment, which purpose was to develop the statewide infrastructure to sustain the IPS model in Illinois. So with that being said, I would like to introduce both of our presenters and welcome them to get started. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Karina, for your introductions to Darius and I, and also to the Florida Alcohol Drug Abuse Association for inviting us today to share this information. Before we get started, Darius and I both want to acknowledge how our lives have changed rapidly due to COVID-19 over the past few months. And of course, this includes how we provide our essential services in life-saving care. So what we'll be talking about today with supported employment, we're finding that there are tremendous opportunities to continue implementing and providing this type of service in this current situation that we're in. And we'd like to, we'll kind of touch on that as we move along. What we're going to talk about today are supported employment, these objectives with supported employment, and an important part of this is how the processes and the practices that we are all part of how we work with individuals and how we work with our teams and how we work with our organization, and also how the state interfaces with us and we interface with the state, how all of that together can serve as facilitators, and also there can be some implementation barriers as well with providing supported employment. We're going to be touching on all of that today as we talk about supported employment evidence-based implementation models, in-depth look at benefits and work incentives, which are important for the people we serve to fully understand, touching on the state and federal resources and strategies that pay for this, that help us to continue to sustain this practice, and in the importance of outcomes and paying attention to how this work is hopefully helping people, and if not, then how we can use these outcomes to get better on our implementation process. We also, both of us, we want to acknowledge the people at the Individual Placement and Support Employment Center. They're currently at Westat, but they're formerly part of the Dartmouth Psychiatric Research Center in New Hampshire. And over the past 30 years, they've committed a tremendous amount of time and commitment and research and implementation to really developing and advancing and promulgating the practice of supported employment throughout not just the United States, but throughout the continents of our world. It's amazing, and we are here and presenting on this today because of the work that they have done dating back to the 80s. So thank you. We start out with this question: what is supported employment, and the importance of integrating it into our system of care? And we want to start by just helping us to see supported employment as a type of treatment, and it's actually a type of treatment that can provide current, that can provide some movement for so much of what we do. This idea that as people become aware of and encouraged and become people who are working in our services, then become active in helping them to identify their preferences and choose the work that they want to do and help them to acquire that and maintain that kind of work. That a lot of other things can start to change for people as well, not just the work, but also a number of other factors in terms of enhancing motivation to address a number of other positive factors in life. And we'll be talking more about that, but we wanted to just emphasize that as we introduce this model, that the emphasis is on choice for the person. The emphasis is on acquiring, so it's active involvement on our part in helping people to acquire the job, which of course will include job development and then ongoing support to maintain those works. So it's about helping them identify preference and choosing, helping them to acquire, and helping them to maintain. Um, to date, there are 27 randomized controlled trials that have demonstrated that supported employment um, has positive outcomes in terms of helping people to secure and maintain at work. And in each of these randomized controlled trials, had a control group. And so a control group, meaning there was a group of people that were involved in the business as usual employment practice that was happening at an organization or an agency or a state. And then the implementation of supported employment, or the evaluation of supported employment. So on this slide, I'd like to draw your attention to the black bars. And those bars indicate, for the people that were involved in the supported employment programs, these are the percentage of people that found competitive work. And then the red or orange bars indicate the percent who found competitive work in the control groups. And these are studies that have taken place starting out in New Hampshire, where Dartmouth is located, where the Psychiatric Research Center is located, but then Illinois, Connecticut, Alabama, the Carolinas, Washington, D.C., and then in other parts of the world, Hong Kong, Australia, Europe, UK, Japan, Canada. And what is important for us to stress is that the support employment model, what we're going to be talking about today, is and helped people to have significant advantages with being able to secure and maintain and work. There's an additional study we just want to touch on, and it involved four programs or four organizations, I guess, in the United States. That were New Hampshire, Washington, D.C., Connecticut, and Chicago. And these were four organizations that were doing employment services, had been doing employment for some time, and then implemented supported employment, and then followed the outcomes with the supported employment people while they continued to do their business as usual practices. And so the SE represents supported employment, and the control column represents the people that were in the business's usual programs, which could have included crew type work, where people maybe worked as a team under the supervision of a staff person, or some sort of workshop kind of program, or where they had to do pre-vocational work typically in the beginning and attend groups for a few months and then demonstrate readiness, and then be placed on these kind of teams that were involved with helping people to kind of support them in their work. Again, these like the studies, and these were all part of the earlier slide that I showed. But these findings show that there was a large difference in terms of these employment outcomes, in terms of helping people acquire their jobs, the total weeks worked, and the job tenure, in terms of being able to stay on the job. And that's key, being able to stay on the job, maintaining on the job. We're going to get now into supported employment principles that guide that have guided the formation of these practices, and how they've kind of contributed to what this model is. Um, the the key game changer, I guess I'd say, for that makes support employment different than the other models that I know I've been part of through my career is zero exclusion. And we're going to get to that, but zero exclusion means that nobody is excluded, for really any reason. The biggest factor here is that a person has the desire to work. We're going to work with them, and we're going to work with them to secure competitive employment based on their choice, based on what it is they want to do. It's going to be considered part of the treatment that they receive, integrated with the rest of the treatment that they receive. So the worker who's helping them to develop a profile for work, to get engaged with work, is active with the team, is meeting with the case managers and if there's a social workers, counselors, nurses, community support, active individuals, peer support. They're very much involved in attending meetings and active. Um, the search for work begins rapidly. There's no requirement to engage slowly in pre-requisitional, pre-rec work activities such as support groups or classes. Following supports are continuous for as long as they're needed and individualized or tailored to that person's needs. Um, and then over time, these were the first six that were part of the early development of this model. And then somewhere I think in the like 2007, 2008, the model expanded. These principles expanded to include benefit planning and staff needing to be active in job development and taking this support employment worker being very active in job development, helping people to connect with community in in a very kind of tangible, relationship-oriented way with the businesses. Um, so we're going to kind of take each one of these, and starting with zero exclusion, I just want to really emphasize this again, that people are not excluded for any reason. They're not excluded if they're actively using substances. They're not excluded if they have a history of incarceration. They're not excluded if they've had recent hospitalizations. There's no work readiness criteria a person needs to demonstrate or meet. Um, and with other models, symptoms, decisions about whether or not a person's initiating recovery for an alcohol or drug problem, um, missing appointments perhaps with staff or with mental health practitioners, personal presentation, mental health, physical presentation may lead to folks saying, well, the person's not ready for this model takes a strength-based approach and doesn't start there at all, but starts at person wants to work, and we're going to kind of, with the rest of these principles, we're going to kind of give this traction. Um, the the focus is on competitive work. And so we're working to help people find jobs that exist in the open labor market, jobs that pay the same as others in similar positions, looking for at least minimum wage, oftentimes more. This can include part-time work, full-time work. People aren't steered into certain positions that we know there to be an abundance of opportunity, or what we've got something going and we can help people get more in this job. It's got to be based on preference. It's got to be based on what people say and believe and feel they want to do. Um, and a special note on there are people, and I've worked with a lot of people that are served by our organization, and then become interested in becoming peer specialists or recovery support specialists. And these are competitive. These are competitive positions that are available for the person only because of their lived experience. But that's a quality or a qualification needed. And so just to kind of touch on that's critically important. Um, these are jobs though that are open to everybody, that's in the general public. Anyone outside of that organization or any organization can apply for these positions. And we just want to emphasize that. Um, we're going to honor, and we want to honor preference. We want to honor what it is that the person is wanting to do. And we want to strive to understand what's most important to the person. When do they want to work? What time of day? How many hours a week? What type of job do they want to do? And from this, the support employment specialist is going to seek to build relationship with employers that can potentially provide an opportunity that match this. And it all really starts by us just being curious and being interested in the person, in what it is that they want in terms of preference. What kind of jobs do they want to do? Do they see themselves doing? It's common sometimes that people may not always have a strong sense of that initially. That a lot of people do, but some don't. For depending on the age of the person, they may have heard that because of a substance use disorder or a psychiatric condition, or because they're receiving Social Security disability, that they really work isn't something they should be pursuing right now. So we want to come at it with hope and encouragement, and start out by learning, what do they like to do? What types of activities have they noticed that when they do, they forget about the time passing? They're so excited, happy to do it. What are they good at? What do people say that they're good at? What kinds of jobs have they had in the past that they liked the most? What was that? Did they do it? What did that entail? If there is a dream job, or if there's a job they've always thought about wanting to do, what is that? Support employment is a type of treatment. It's integrated with the treatment and recovery support that people receive. There's multidisciplinary teams typically that may be serving the individual. So we're focused on incorporating the support employment, or integrating the supported employment worker who's regularly attending meetings, and at least weekly, and participating and talking with the team about their caseload, and also what kind of help do they need from the team, and what kind of help can the team provide to support the person in their work goal. And this could be, it could be a matter of, the person is going to be on an interview, and maybe the team is involved in providing some support with shopping for clothes, or maybe they're involved in helping the person to kind of think through some situations that may come up on an interview. The support employment worker takes a lead with all of this, but on visits and on contacts that we're having, this can come up too, and we provide hope, we provide encouragement. If there's a medication issue that the person is saying is causing sleepiness, maybe the team will help the person with addressing that. There's psychiatrists, so there's integration, there's support provided throughout. The other part of this is that job search is competitive. That we're working, to help people. I'm sorry. The competitive job search is rapid, in that we're working really hard to help people secure employment within a month. We're actively meeting with them and supporting them and looking for work within a month. Doesn't mean they have a job within a month, but it could. There are people that are able to secure work quickly. But we're emphasizing here that it's not necessary to do a pre-vocational program, which I'm very familiar with, and I've known a lot of people earlier in my career that was our go-to strategy, and it could help people. This is where it's at in terms of helping people to secure work immediately, and conveying that this is something that they can do, and that it's a very possible and real experience. The support that we're offering is continuous. And it's for as long as is needed and desired by the person. So what does the support mean? Well, it could be, helping the person to meeting them after work to talk about the job and how it's going, picking them up, bringing them to work that morning, meeting them after work, driving them home, and having great conversations, hopefully, about how it's going and what their work is entailing, providing a wake-up call on that first day, if it's something they've identified as being helpful, addressing any mental health changes or treatment changes that may support the person in their work, meeting with supervisors, eliciting, helping provide extra feedback, providing on-the-job coaching, understanding how all of this employment and income affects Social Security benefits, if the person is receiving benefits, and how to manage all of that through benefit planning. What I was going to ask next is for Darius to share with us, just to jump in and share with us the impact of the benefit planning in the job development. Because I've been part of helping to implement supported employment in the programs that I've been involved in as a team leader, program director, and leader within the organization. And Darius has been a key person in implementing the model with those teams and with teams throughout the state of Illinois, in organizations as well. So Darius, I wanted to ask if you could just share with us like what you saw as a change when the benefit planning and the job development actually became implemented into this model, because I know you worked in the field and provided support employment prior to this being an active principle, and now that it's in the past 12 years or so since it's been a practice.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Tim. And again, I wanted to thank everyone for joining the call today. We really are honored to be presenting to y'all today. Um, One thing, and I was an employment specialist doing direct service to the clients at the agency. And around, as Tim said, about 2008, that's when this principle, benefit planning, is offered, came out. What we knew at the time, before this principle came out, is that the number one reason why clients did not want to work was simply because they was afraid they was going to get their benefits cut, because they had worked so long to either get their SSI or SSDI, and even though work was a great idea and they really wanted to work, they declined working because they were so afraid that their benefits was going to get cut. And so that feedback went back to Dartmouth and more research was done. And with proper benefit planning, speaking to someone who knows all about benefit planning, and can help make a person wisely inform them to make a wise decision on what should I do about my benefits, how should I work, how many hours should I work, what should I be doing. That became key. And so that's when in about 2008, this principle got added. And it meant a whole lot. Numbers, as far as people engaging employment specialists, and also numbers of people finally saying they wanted to work and enrolling in IPS, they went up, because people now, even though that fear was addressed, and I think a lot of this is about addressing people's fear. There's many people for so long has been told what they can't do and what they shouldn't do, and they get bad information out there about benefit planning, so they say they don't want to do it. But once they saw a benefit planner, actual trained person, benefit planner, know all the programs, know all the things, can do the inquiry to figure out what a person's entitlements are and how would that work as that person would work in the community, people was making better decisions about themselves and not making decisions based on what happened to other people. And so this principle is just so valuable, and it really helps people realize that this entire program is for you and it's about you. What I would say, last thing I would say about this is, if everyone on the call had benefits, all of our benefits would be totally different. So I couldn't compare mine to Tim or anything like that. So because of that, why be afraid to work because of the bad information you've probably heard out there? Your situation is different than everyone else's situation. So let's get a plan for you. And that's very, very important. The other principle, we can go on to number 8. Having difficulty going to the next one.
Do you see it, Darius?
Yeah, I'm having difficulty going to the next screen.
I just put it up.
Okay. The most important thing with the next one, again, what happened was employment specialists were spending a lot of their time, a lot of their energy going out into the field and really talking to employers, making up employer contacts. And so what happened was people realized that, you know what, this need to be a principle as well, because programs and whatever entity that will be providing the service need to know that it's very, very important for those employment specialists to go out in the field and actually do job development, to make those connections with employers, to figure out, what are the needs of the employers, what the things that the employers are looking for as far as a good worker, and also making that match as far as looking at the needs of that individual and what that individual wants to do and what they like to do and things like that, and making that match. That became very, very important, and this became a principle as well. So this came to a principle probably in about 2009. And again, this is one of the most important principles because a lot of the focus on employment specialists is to go out and create those opportunities for people to work, so that job development piece, talking to employers, really finding out what the needs of employers are, letting them dictate and tell you, what they need to make their business successful, what they need to make their jobs better, what they need to, in order to have a successful business or company. That feedback comes back and you make that connection with that client, and lo and behold, you have a match. You have a good match.
Thank you, Darius. It's so important to have that good match and to have that great relationship with the employers. And we're gonna, in a moment, we're gonna touch on what's in it for employers and maybe get some of their feedback in terms of how they find this experience of participating in supported employment. So thank you. The next part of what we want to address is we've kind of reviewed some of the literature and supporting this model and in the principles and some key takeaways. Some key takeaways I think are that these principles they work and they continue to work. The studies just continue to demonstrate that that by implementing these principles, we are helping more people secure and maintain in their employment. The there's some structures too, though, that we are going to want to kind of emphasize that we want to kind of build into into how the model is implemented, how the model kind of the processes and practices that that will work here. So, the these include, who we're hiring to work on these teams. The emphasizing the relationship building that we do with the employers, and then integration, the ways that we can integrate it within our organization or within the work that we're already doing, and how that kind of looks, and then also the barriers that happen at the client level, can happen at the team level, that can even happen at the mental health substance use treatment authority level. So I don't know. I'm gonna move this on up. We somehow we went back a few. So move this back up here. Um, so on this slide, we want to emphasize the importance of hiring staff that are same race, culture, representing the people that are served, and in that there's an opportunity for those that are served are connecting with the people that are providing their care. In addition, these are the roles that are typically part of the delivery of these services. So it's support employment isn't delivered in isolation. It's not delivered as an employment agency kind of a service. it's integrated as a part of treatment, and and there's interfacing with case managers, family advocates, certified recovery support specialists, certified recovery peer specialists, therapists, psychiatrists, nurses, primary care physicians, substance use counselors, housing coordinators, and I'm not. I can just speak from my own experience that it's pretty common for people that work in this field to be a jack of all trades sometimes, and to have a number of these roles that they're carrying all in one position. So you might be doing the substance use counseling, and you might also have integrated mental health background and do therapy, or you might be a case manager who's also helping to coordinate housing. Um, could be a person with lived experience who is also, a certified alcohol drug counselor doing some substance use. So there's overlap, of course, but the idea is that these are needs, these are services that are provided as part of supported employment. The benefit to employers, I think, is something that we want to emphasize, and we wanted to do that with a video. Actually, we're going to queue up here to kind of share how this is gonna go. So I don't know, Karina, if we can get that queued up for everybody. It's only going to be about a minute, and then we're going to come back, but maybe a minute and 20 seconds.
Okay, I'm pulling it up now. Thank you.
The people I work with are genuinely excited to work. If you have someone who's actually excited to be there, that's a huge advantage for employers.
As far as thresholds goes, I currently have 2 employees who work for me who are from the organization. Outstanding employees because all they want to do is work hard, be here on time, do a good job.
This is probably one of the best employees I've ever had. Never misses a day, gets along well with others. I mean, it's the perfect employee.
I wish I had some more. It's easy to work with them. They're really motivated to do a good job.
When Threshold first approached me about hiring Jessica, I thought it was probably going to be a lot more involved than I wanted to be, but it turned out not to be.
Employers are always looking for someone to stay, and so one thing that we let them know is, hey, this person has an entire team to help them keep this job.
You have a liaison between somebody who really understands what these individuals are experiencing and how we can deal with it.
They're very available, they make things easy. If you're not able to fully communicate something with somebody, they can bridge that gap.
You talk with a member who's been working for a while and their outlook is completely different.
They feel important and like they belong and they're loved even. I got something to do and I need to get up and go here because they're waiting on me.
Thank you, Karina. And that's just one organization. There are videos of the benefits to employers throughout YouTube. We've been able to find many throughout different parts of the U.S. that share a similar, a very similar, experience when the employer part of it is featured. But Darius, I wanted to just kind of check in with you. Has this been your real life experience as someone who has forged and developed, hundreds of relationships with employers? Is this something that maybe even thousands, but is this something that you've experienced with the folks you know?
Yeah, you know what? Employers, most employers, I would say 95% of employers want one thing, and that's for the work to be done. And they don't care about all the stigma and red tape and all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, the employer wants to know, can this person do the job, yes or no? And if they can do the job, then let's give it a try. You know what I mean? What ends up happening is that, an employer, after, talking to that employment specialist and making that connection, making that relationship building, they have a HR person really. now that can tell them exactly what their staff, their new staff, once they hire that client, um, help them produce, help them with the new cash register system, help them with the new locker, a extra support to help them be successful at their job. You know what I mean? So instead of employer looking at these 150 applicants over here that they don't know anything about, that they might be telling the truth, might not be telling the truth on their application. Okay, they pick 5 and then or pick 10, and then out of 10, guess what? 5 of them are good, 5 of them are awful. You have a person over here, who they've been talking to, who the employment specialist and made a relation with. They talk to that person, and that person ends up doing the job because the only thing they want to do is that job. You know what I mean? And they'll do it for the hours that they say they want to do it, and they're doing it the days that they say they want to do it, and that's it. You know what I mean? What ends up happening is that employers reach out to the employment specialist more than they reach out to their own HR department if they need help. And I've seen so many examples of a manager at a business reaching out to the employment specialist and say, hey, you got any more staff? Because, this past staff is excellent. The staff is, the staff you gave me that you helped me make this connection with is perfect. So unbeknownst to a lot of the rumors that employers are bad people, that kind of stuff, totally false. Employers just want a person that can do the job, And here's the thing. If you put a person in the job, 2 things are going to happen. Either that the person's going to be successful or the person's not. Well, again, guess what happens to normal, regular society, quote unquote? People are successful and people are not. But at least they have a network that can help them with this person. You know what I mean? And so it helps. It helps a lot.
Thanks so much, Darius. And it's such an important point too that we learn from our experience, and when a position or an employment placement doesn't work out, there could be some very good reasons for that, and it may be the fit, it may be what it is that is it could be just what's going on between the way the supervision occurs, or where so many of us have been in experiences where can probably relate, that fit and how we're approached is a big part of our success. Um, so we're going to kind of we're going to move into some discussion on implementation. Um, and the left-hand column here of this slide is focused on how we can integrate support employment with perhaps some of our existing programming. So if we're working in community mental health, or we're working for a behavioral health organization that is providing supported employment, supported housing, permanent supported housing. I've been part of programming where it's working with people that are homeless, that have substance use disorders, that have mental illness, and are eligible for HUD-based, supported housing, subsidized housing, and have seen tremendous outcome in terms of the importance of helping people secure work. And I know about our assertive community treatment too. I was on a team early in my career where we were one of the first teams to implement support employment, and it was on an ACT team, and I was the team leader. I'm going to share some reflections on that soon. But I know throughout organizations in the U.S. that both at the supported housing, within supported housing programs, and assertive community treatment, or FACT in Florida, that yes, that this can be a very core component of treatment. Integrated dual disorders treatment, treatment that emphasizes the integration of mental health and substance use practices. And treatment, employment is part of providing comprehensive care. It's support employment as an evidence-based practice is very much a part of delivering effective IDDT, integrated dual disorders treatment. I think our center-based programs have been doing versions of employment work, since the beginning. And what I mean is since they formed, really. And I know in our places that I'm familiar with, there was always focus on pre-vocational crews and contributing to, the meals and the cleaning that may happen at a program. But to see that now transformed into, competitive employment at local world. We see that at center-based programs throughout, whether they be clubhouse models or centers for recovery or however we're kind of framing it, but it's so critical. And then it can be a key component within, an individual's wellness recovery action plan, RAP plan. It can be one of the core, the principal activities that they identify as needed for their wellness, and it provides some structure to the day. It provides some purpose, some meaning, some things that are important. Um, and and we also know that supported employment can stand on its own in terms of an organization can be all about support employment and maybe isn't doing all of these other practices that I've mentioned here, but is working with other organizations to provide the support employment. So there's still an integration, but it's not within the same organization. And Darius, I was hoping you could shed some light on how you've seen that work.
Yeah, definitely. So you have within an organization an IPS program, and so that IPS program works in that with that caseload at that agency and also in that community. You know, so that's probably the most common model of of support employment is that you have a program within a community mental health center, and that program services that support employment program services that community mental health center in that community and neighborhood they're in. The second type you see is that you have a staff who may be the employment specialist, and so they are doing support employment, but they're working with multiple teams in multiple communities. And that is kind of, you see that, well, we see that in Illinois in our rural areas where you may have one employment specialist, but they serve 3 or 4 different counties. Monday they might be in Winnebago County here, Tuesday they might be in Rockford County here, Wednesday, they might be in St. Clair County here. And they just rotate between those counties to provide the those employment to provide those SE services. So there's a person embedded on a team, but they serve so many different communities, so many different counties. And then you also see you have one program, support employment agency, support employment program, serving another program that doesn't have support employment. So one agency, agency A, we have employment specialists, we have employment specialists, we have 2 employment specialists and a team leader. They serve agency number B who don't have a vocational program at all. And so what happens is agency B, who don't have a SE program, refers people to the support employment team of the first agency, and they work together to help that people get employment. So those are the basically the 3 ways you will see SE stand alone.
Thank you, Darius. The next part of what we want to share are just some, we work hard to implement evidence-based practice support employment, but there are some inherent barriers that need to be overcome oftentimes, and it's part of the work. Really, it becomes part of what we do. Um, and practically speaking, there can be some funding barriers. An organization may be working in a state that doesn't compensate for the delivery of employment services, or doesn't have an infrastructure for compensating. The um, the rapid placement and continuous support. It may take time to go out and do job development. And job development isn't necessarily an activity that you can submit a bill to Medicaid for in every state. And so that may put some pressure on staff to prioritize services for those who can rapidly, that are perceived anyway, that to rapidly be able to get employment. People that have less complexity in their situation. Um, and then we also know that it tends to work well for an employment for a supported employment specialist when they have a caseload that has people throughout all the different stages of seeking and acquiring and securing and then maintaining an employment. So, if that happens to be where, if there happens to be a heavier emphasis or more people in need of initial employment, so more focus on job development, then they may be in a position where they're not they're not engaging in a billable service as much. So it's just things that have to be kind of looked at and managed. We're going to talk a little bit more about funding and after the break, but we just want to identify that these are practical barriers that need to be thought through and addressed with the state authority. There's also program barriers. There can be barriers that we experience at the program level. You know, an ACT team, for example, or FACT team may be really busy trying to just help people get off the streets, right, and help people to secure housing and get on Social Security and to access primary health care and to just really focus on meeting basic primary needs, and they may not see that as the highest priority right now. Others may see, well, we only have so much time to focus on employment. Let's focus on the people that are not using right now, or let's focus on the people that we perceive to be the most stable. And so this ideological difference with this principle of zero exclusion sometimes plays out as well, and can play out. And I'm I'm gonna just kind of kick us off here with this poll by asking people to kind of just answer one of this, whether the sobriety lead to a more satisfying life, or does a more satisfying life lead to sobriety. I'm going to share some literature on this in a moment, but just to kind of, as we get to presenting that, it'd be helpful to get your take on it, based on what you believe, what you think, what you know. Take a minute for that. So there's going to be a question. You can either A is sobriety leads to more satisfying life, or B, more satisfying life leads to sobriety. What's your response to
And Tim, I believe the audience should see that up on their screen now. I see them responding. And I did want to mention, while everyone's responding, I tried to give information in the chat feed that the Q&A panel is not working. So if you have questions, please share them in the chat panel. Thank you. Okay, Tam, you should see the results for that poll.
that? Comes first. We have about 22% saying, so we're about split with those who could respond. We're about split 23, 22%. We have about 57 that weren't able to deliver a response for some reason. But we'll go with the number that we have. And so it's about 23 saying that sobriety comes first, and then 22% say that employment comes first. And what I want to bring us back to this. 20 years ago, there was a ethnographic study that was done that involved an anthropologist actually looking at the community of people that a community where there were people throughout it that had mental health diagnoses such as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and co-occurring substance use disorders. And what they did is they spent 18 months with folks, just kind of in their world. They would visit with them, they would get to know the people that were important to them. They would, if they were substance using, they would get to know some of the people that were in that world. If they were pursuing goals, or if they were having setbacks, they were just paying attention to all that and developing some connection too with the people as they went through. And what they found in their work with this group was that those people that were able to experience a reduction in substance use and become sober did so over a longer period of time. It wasn't this one event that contributed to now they cross over thresholds and now they're in sobriety. But that the sobriety tended to happen on a slower course over time as they engaged in these four what they identified as these four positive life factors. I'm going to share them here. People had that they were engaged in a regular, enjoyable activity that provided some structure and support to sober people to their day, meaningful activity, that there was stable housing from their perspective. It could change over time, but that they were satisfied and felt stable and safe in their housing, that they were engaged in loving, caring relationships with someone who was sober, who accepted them for who they are, accepted them for having a co-occurring, knew about, accepted their co-occurring, having co-occurring disorders, and that they were in a therapeutic relationship, and that I mean, it could be with a counselor, a case manager, a therapist, a physician, a nurse, um, and that they had access to good care. And I share this study, and we share this study because it's the first that we became aware of, that these are factors that we really want to be paying attention to. And what's so, I think, interesting and exciting really is that, several years ago, we started seeing these same positive life factors on the SAMHSA website as these are the as identifiable dimensions that support a life in recovery. Purpose, having meaningful activities such as a job, school, volunteerism. This is right off the SAMHSA website. Home, having a stable home, place to live. Community, having a relationship with social networks that provide support, friendship, love, and hope, and having access to good care. Could be medical care, physical, for physical, behavioral health, where they're actively involved in we all need to be actively involved in making informed, healthy choices that support physical well-being, emotional well-being. And, we see these dimensions referenced in the Surgeon General's report on addiction that came out it was in November, December 2016. There was emphasis on these dimensions. And we see it now on the SAMHSA website as something that we want to promulgate, something that is kind of like a guide for all of us in terms of how we approach our work, in terms of trying to help people with initiating and sustaining recovery. So this notion that recovery, that sobriety happens first, isn't supported necessarily in the literature. And with supported employment literature in those 27 randomized controlled trials that I referenced, we regularly see that people that are actively involved in their substance use, by engaging in employment, by engaging in the process of working to secure employment, and securing employment, that other behaviors specific to, stabilizing substance use conditions, stabilizing psychiatric conditions, that there's movement here, that progress occurs in terms of people reporting and being able to manage symptoms, and being able to manage a lot of what may go into having prevented them from being able to work. And I share with you now just quickly a story of a person that I had worked with. I referenced earlier that I'd been a team leader, and that on a PAC team, or we call it ACT team, and it was a team that initially was starting support employment. We hired a support employment worker. We learned about the model back this was a 96 version of it, 1996, 97, and we had the article out, and had there wasn't an ABP manual yet on the times the website first implemented. But we were interested in this idea of the principles that were current at the time, and we hired this person, and the support employment worker asked us all to identify people that she could get started with in terms of going out to meet and talk to them about employment. These were people that had told us that they were interested in working, and and there was a man that was on our caseload that was in his early 40s. He had schizoaffective disorder, active rock cocaine use disorder. He'd been using since his early 20s pretty regularly. Had been homeless for several years. He was on our ACT team. We had him we'd helped him to secure housing in an SRO, single room occupancy hotel. And he had some physical and some mental health conditions that he was addressing. He was on SSI, he was on Medicaid. He was very active in his addiction in terms of in the community, on the streets, securing cocaine, using cocaine, talking a lot to himself, some disruptions in the housing, and we didn't put him on the list. We did not put him on the list. And an opportunity came where there was a gathering and it was a social event and people were all there, and the support employment worker was going up to people, introducing herself, engaging in great conversation. And when she met this man, he said, "I want to work, help me get a job." And she came to me later that day and she said, this person wasn't on your list. And I said, "Wow, go for it. See if you can help him with work." And it was just something that I hadn't done. And I didn't refer him, and the team didn't refer him. And she was able to secure a position for him, and it met these demands. It was get a job. He wanted a job that was in the afternoon, that was somewhat physical, where he could work alone. That when he was outside, he wanted to be outdoors. He wanted to be able to do physical work in the afternoon outdoors all by himself. And it I remember when I heard about this, I thought, well, he has some physical limitations in terms of stamina, in terms of breathing. I wasn't sure. It's what he wanted, and that's what she wanted to pursue with him. So we've got this next part here. If you could just take a guess, where might you start if you were going to be looking at this with him? Or, of course, I guess we would bring it back to him, but and see which ones he would be more interested in, and to see if he would want to do this. But I'd like your, just to give you an opportunity to kind of reflect, and where might you start with a person that had an active, he had a thought disorder in terms of schizoaffective disorder, experiencing psychosis. He had was using rock cocaine pretty regularly. Had some physical limitations, but wanted to do physical work and wanted to work outside, wanted to work in the afternoon, did not want to work in the morning, and wanted to work part-time, a few afternoons a week. So we can set up the tally.
Okay, we have the poll up and it looks like everyone's answering. And there's your poll result. And Tim, I did want to mention that it looks like some people don't have the capability of answering the poll, so
I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll thanks for those who could and those who tried. We have about 11% that were starting with public works, 30% the parks, and then 3% in the cable for a cable network company, and 57% were not able to respond. And to my surprise at the time, and it made sense after he started on the job for a while, but I remember when she came to us and she said that she had been able to help him get a job with the Public Works Department washing trucks. And it turned out to be an amazing experience for him. He worked alone in a field power washing these trucks with a big sprayer. He was there in the afternoon, and if he he didn't have to really change how he presented in terms of physical appearance, in terms of if he was there, if he was exhibiting symptoms of psychosis, he was alone in the field, in this parking area, spraying the trucks. And they loved his work. They liked what he did. They liked that he did a good job. And he felt really good about that good job. And it became a start initiation really for him. That one of the things that's kind of cool if you work in an organization for 20 some years like I have, you're part of a number of different types of programs, and you get to continue having a relationship with people that you knew at an earlier time. So this is an individual that I knew when I was a team leader, and I was able to stay in contact every so often. We would experience, I'd be at a program where he was staying or living, or different events would be going on, and I was able to stay updated on through direct contact how he was doing. He ended up moving into permanent supported housing, served people that had substance use and mental health conditions, continued with that work, and moved on to some other types of work as his physical health did decline some. He was able to continue doing work, reconnected with adult children, bought a car, bought an automobile, bought a new car, and paid it off over time. Drove that car to visit his adult kids and their families, visited with them on holidays, and achieved sobriety over a very long extended period of time. And I just share that because it was the work, it seems, that was a big factor in helping him to connect with people that weren't using. It provided an incentive for him to not use on the mornings he was going to be going to work. It provided an incentive for him to be looking ahead and to be looking at other possibilities. It put him in contact with others who were not part of that substance using world. And eventually it helped him transition into a world that was mostly people in recovery, or his own family, and where he regularly reported having high levels of satisfaction and gratitude. Really, he had a lot of gratitude for all sorts of groups and people. And so I just, we share that as one example of, and my own example of not referring when I could have, when I should have, and I learned a lot from that experience. So I think we're going to take a break now and I'll let Karina kind of establish the time that we're going to come back, and then Darius, be ready.
Sure. If you have a quick question, we did, or quick minute to answer a question. We had someone ask about placing people with jobs who have previous charges such as trafficking and sex-related offenses.
I can answer that one. That's a great question. So, and this one I'll answer by saying there was a poll done by Dartmouth probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, and basically what happened was they surveyed 100 employers who hired and still had on their business crew or whatever people with criminal background justice involvement. So 100 employers who've all hired people with backgrounds, right? And so they had three major responses of why they hired these people. The number one reason why they hired people with criminal backgrounds is because A, those people could do the jobs that they need to be done. And, I kind of talked about that earlier, but the person can do the job. No matter they had a background or not, there was a need, the person can do the job, that's that. The number two reason why they hired the people was the person showed remorse of what he or she had done. and they were better now. So yes, back then I were doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing. I wasn't thinking clearly, blah blah blah, and I did something. I'm sorry I did it. I have great remorse for that. I'm in a better place in life right now. I have supports, natural supports. I'm in church, blah blah blah, and I'm just in a better place now than I was then, and I show remorse. And the number 3 reason why the employers hired the person with criminal background is because they trusted the employment specialist who made that relation with the business owner in the first place. So again, that job development piece, talking to the employer, getting their needs and all that kind of stuff, they had a good match. And whether that person had a criminal background or not, they had a match for that employer to do the job, and they trusted that advocacy of the employment specialist. So with those 3 things, yes, is it a little bit more difficult to hire a person with backgrounds? It's a little more work. I won't say it's more difficult, it's more work. You really have to work on the aspect and that person show remorse. So you have to make sure you have a great letter explaining what happened, why it happened, talking about what happened then because I wasn't supported, I was by myself, blah, blah, blah. Now I have a network, I have, I'm in church, I have counselors, I have family, I'm older now, I'm wiser now, that was when I was young and stupid, blah, blah, blah. That letter that shows a person remorse is going to be very, very strong. And so it's up to that employment specialist to help that person craft that letter and actually help that person practice during the interview to show his or her remorse to the employer. You know what I mean? Again, if that person can do the job and if that employment specialist is doing his or her job to establish that relationship, it's going to be a lot easier for that person to get hired in the community. So yes, is it more work? Yes, but it's not harder. It's just the idea there's a few more steps as far as helping that person show that remorse to the employer. That's the easy answer.
Thank you very much. It's about 11:12, and so we'll take a 5-minute break. If everyone can be back at 11:17, that would be great. Thank you. Darius and Tim, are you still on the line?
Yeah, we're right here. Yeah.
We did have several questions that ended up coming in before the break.
Oh,
So
good.
I didn't know if you wanted to address them when people get back or wait till a little bit later.
Can you summarize those for us? Because I'm trying to, let's see. Maybe we
Yeah,
could go back and look at them.
I have
Okay.
them written down for you.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
whenever you're ready, I can let you know what I have.
Yeah. Do you want to give them to us now? Because we can also, we may be able to work them into future parts of the presentation.
Okay.
Exactly.
So one question is, what are some strategies used to overcome drug-free work environments for those individuals who are not drug-free?
Okay.
Okay. The
Okay.
next one are, what are some key criteria points for this program?
Okay. We're going to talk about those.
And
That's going to be in the, that's coming in the implementation of the fidelity scale.
And then we also have people in the audience who are recovering addicts themselves, and they wondered what organizations are out there that can help them with employment, if you're going to be touching base on other organizations.
Yeah. So I think, would you say, Karina, that most of the people are probably from the Florida communities in the state?
Yes.
Okay. So I would there is not a learning collaborative in Florida, because we looked into this. There is not a supported employment learning collaborative. So that would be where we would usually recommend people touch base.
Mm-hmm.
Darius, do you have any thoughts on how a person can find out if their organization has offers supported employment, or where it might be in their community?
You know what? The only thing that you can do, because like Florida's not quote unquote part of the collaborative, if they can go to their if they haven't already, go to a vocational rehabilitation counselor, so a VR counselor
Mm.
in
That's
their
with the
area.
state. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would
with
be
the
the
state.
state. Yeah.
So
And
if they
then-
go to the what will happen is that vocational rehab counselor should have community mental health centers or community centers that they refer the person to that may have supported employment. So
Right,
while
well-
they're going to the VR, but they're not going to necessarily VR for the services. For VR service, they're going to probably get referred to somebody if that's
So
the word with it.
some of the people who are asking these questions may be off the line on the break, so I didn't
Okay.
know if you wanted to wait and answer these
Mhm.
when they get back so they can hear this information.
Sure. Sure.
And then there's several more, so
Okay.
if you want to just answer
Yeah.
a few when people get back, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's fine. Fine with me. Tell me what you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to get through I do think that some of what they're asking is going to be, when they're asking for, like one person asked for a cheat sheet on all of this,
Right.
but that's going to come as we go through the fidelity scale,
Okay.
Exactly.
and the criteria, we're going to talk about that. The
Overcoming drug-free work environment.
yeah, so I think that my first preference, my first idea, of course, is to focus on employers that aren't going to do drug testing. Because if they have a policy that requires drug testing, then the person isn't going to be able to get that job.
Right.
Unless the drug testing becomes a factor that enhances their motivation to want to make a change.
Yeah.
And that does happen. That does happen,
And it kind of
right?
goes back. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the relationship that employment specialists build with the employer.
Yeah.
So if that employment specialists have a great relationship with that employer, then
Yeah.
maybe for a select few people, you know what I mean, the employer may overlook that drug test or may not give the drug test on the word that the employment specialist would be there to every
Yeah.
moment of the way to assist that person to be successful.
Yeah, I think if there's flexibility, I think that's a great idea. I think if it's the if it's the correctional center for the community or a government organization,
Yeah. Mhm.
they may, but they may say, well, no, you got to pass the drug test. But
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's awesome though if you can get some connection and I think it's important to know what the policies are,
Yep,
and
it is.
I know a lot of people that are able to pass that drug test, but then there isn't continued drug testing, so it's not random after that unless there's cause or reasons. So sometimes people may be motivated to take a vacation from their use, and,
Okay, I think everyone's probably back from the break. And so Tim and Darius, you just let me know when you're ready to answer some of the questions. I've been keeping
Okay.
a tally of everyone's questions.
Awesome.
You're,
Well, yeah, well, I think why don't we take a few minutes and go through them, and Darius and I are here to we'll do our best to comment and respond, and then we'll continue on with
okay.
one of our prepared
So
material.
we have someone in the audience that would like to know if you have any information on a client who has immigrated to the U.S. but does not have a work permit in the U.S. Do we help them obtain a work visa?
So there has been circumstances that has happened, and going back to this model, the integration with the clinical team, so that would be a barrier for a person to work. So that employment specialists will work with that clinical team to try to obtain whatever visas or work permits or whatever that person would need to go to work. So that would fall to the entire clinical team and employment specialist employment team.
Okay. And do you work with individuals with diminished cognitive abilities as well as individuals with mental health substance use issues?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's quite a bit of literature. Support employment has kind of it started with people that have mental health conditions, and so much, our experience anyway is that in the inner city community mental health programming that we provide, a good 50% oftentimes of the people we serve have co-occurring substance use disorders. So they're the same population really. And so yes, we are working with people that have substance use, and I do know that organizations that serve people that have cognitive disabilities as well find success with supported employment, and there's some literature supporting that as well. Darius, I don't know if you have more to add on that.
No, you hit it on the nail. Yeah, a lot of clients have cognitive issues, and
Yeah,
that employment specialist helps that person with their cognitive issues. There's
right.
different Boston University has different kind of tools that they've put out to help people with cognitive issues be successful at work. So that's the place. Maybe we can send a link or something to those tools later
Yeah.
on.
But I think it's important. It's important to kind of. It's also, when we talk about continuous support, that principle of continuous support, and trying to break down and understand what are the barriers or what are the issues. I can remember our support employment specialist who, came back to the team and said, so and so is not following through with a lot of the tasks that they're being asked to do as a janitor, and it turned out, and it was at a church, and it was a nice person that was supervising them, not satisfied with the work they were doing. And it turned out that the pastor had been giving him verbal instructions on how to complete the tasks. And once we were able to kind of put a schedule together and write it down, and then he could go back to that schedule day in, day after day after day, and look at, this is what I do on Monday, this is what I do on Tuesday. And that, just doing that and structuring the work, dealt with that problem. And it turned out that the job became a meaningful activity for him, and they were satisfied employers.
Okay. So whenever you have clients, do you teach them how to be an effective employee, such as like communication skills and timeliness?
Yes, that's part of the job of the employment specialist. The employment specialist is there to assist the client in every aspect that will help him or her get the job. So that's to improve their resume, if that's to help them improve their interviewing skills, if that's there to help them improve how they socialize in public in the community, because it will be a normal environment, in a community environment that they have to work and all that kind of stuff. The employment specialist helps with all those activities, all those things, um, those things that help a person achieve employment. That's what employment specialist would be there to assist with that person with.
Okay. So I have lots of questions coming in, so you just let me know when you're ready to take more.
Okay, well, some of the questions that have to do with criteria and have to do with key implementation practices, we are going to cover as we talk about the um, implementation fidelity scale. And I'm also seeing, thank you for all of the people that are sharing resources. There's a lot of great information going back and forth about people asking, where can you go for support employment? How does one seek it in their state and in their area? And there's a lot of great comments coming back from others about how they where one might go. So I'd ask people to look at the comments also. And if anyone else that's on the call or that's part of the training knows of resources for securing support employment, share it for the rest of the group. That would be, sure that would be a welcomed
Yeah, and make
knowledge.
sure you share with all panelists instead of
Mm,
just to the host, because some people are sharing some great resources, but it looks like they may just be going to you, so not everyone can see them.
okay, so that's an important distinction. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Um, so I wanted to just kind of cover hesitancy of the person served. It's another barrier. The person, and Darius has talked about this as well, that people may believe they can't work, and they may have been told that this isn't something they should be pursuing right now. And I can tell you that as a person that was doing this work in the late 80s and 90s, especially with substance use too, we weren't encouraging people to get work right away. It was like, okay, get sober first, nothing new for the first few months, no new relations, no new activities, really work on your sobriety. Um, and I've even been in discussions and, conversations and team meetings too, where work is something that maybe wasn't promoted right away for people due to symptoms of a psychiatric condition. So people hear this, and people know they may have been hearing this for decades. And so this self stigma, this inability to work based on what a person believes about themselves is important. And we just want to kind of address that and convey hope, convey that this is definitely something people can do, and and by emphasizing values and goals, looking at what matters to the person, what are some of the things that they like to do, that they would enjoy doing, work that they'd be interested in doing, you know, um, really practicing motivational interviewing, as it pertains to the addressing the ambivalence that has to do with work. And I'm not saying that we want to force work or that we want to insist on it in any way, but if there is some ambivalence, then there that suggests that there's some doubt and there's some concern, but there's also some interest. And so we want to kind of fully explore that with people by looking at values and goals. And oftentimes a person may believe that they're not at a point where they can work, but maybe there's a step they can take over the next week that will help move it a little bit in that direction. And it could be they're going to explore something, they're going to go look into something, they're going to talk with somebody. Whatever it is, it's something that we feel like, and they feel like they can have success at achieving. Um, just some other, principles here of for our staff to kind of work on it as we engage and kind of focus with people and evoking and planning. It's all a big part of, I think, how we convey what we're doing with people, and conveying hope and conveying that this is a possibility for them. So if you do have if motivational interviewing is a practice that you're familiar with, there's tremendous opportunity here for I think, helping people to begin resolving some of that ambivalence that may be present. And this isn't necessarily something that the support employment worker jumps into, because again, they're about readiness and helping people that want to work. But there may be people that aren't quite there yet, but we can help them get there. Focusing on high priority goals and things like that. I wanted to another barrier sometimes is person may believe that their Social Security disability income is, Darius is going to talk more about the benefits planning as well. But this particular slide is here to help us see that sometimes knowing that a person is a person who receives SSI, knowing that they may be close to being able to receive SDI, which can pay a lot more per month, knowing that if they do some more credits, work some more credits, that they could be eligible for that, it can be an incentive, and it can help people to want to pursue it. So in other words, we've known people that have had work in their lives and haven't worked for 20 years or more. And then when we call Social Security, we learn that, wow, if they just put in another year and a half or another 2 years of part-time work, earn a few more credits, they'll move from SSI to SDI, which would be a significant bump in income, and it would tie back to their earnings over the years that they've worked. And so this slide just kind of captures, the amount of credits needed and the number of years needed for being eligible for that to happen for a person. There's a lot of material at this slide down here, or at the retrieve at the bottom. You can get more information on that. But it's here as an incentive if they feel like SSI is something they can't do it, or that because of SSI they can't work. Knowing if they're what their credits are and if they are eligible for how many years would they need to put in to be able to get a much higher level of income. Step by step, little by little, for people that are ambivalent. But we've seen people move forward, and have great success. So I was going to ask Darius now to kind of just we're going to get into some of this, some of the funding and some of the implementation or the evidence-based implementation through the fidelity scale as well. Before I pass it on, though, I just summarizing that we want to help people we want to address support employment with all people, whatever their preconditions are, whether they have substance use or other cognitive issues. We focus on support employment is something that they can participate in. Work is something that they can participate in. Conveying hope and optimism from the team is critical. Not that we're cheerleading necessarily, but that we're just kind of trying to kind of understand and convey hope and optimism based on what it is that they're saying they want to do, focusing on their interests, work history, job skills, things that are important to them. And then also focusing on jobs that do support recovery. So if a person has a substance use condition, it may be better to not focus on a job where they're going to be serving alcohol or they're going to be involved in a lot of in fields where substance use might be playing out more. What kind of level of support, supervision, structure is needed for them to be successful and to focus on that. And then money management, if that's an issue too. We've known people that they are doing really well in their recovery and their job has been part of it, but maybe they don't have a bank account and maybe they get that first check and it's just cash, right? And they could be triggered. It happens. So having things set up and having a plan for how to manage that, providing support are all really important. Darius, I think we're gonna kind of get into some of this organizational structure now. Maybe we can do that. I was also thinking we could, given our time, maybe we could um, allow people the opportunity to see the video on their own, the video about the team meeting, and move into some of the other parts of this because there's a link there for it, and we can it would just be an opportunity to kind of see how a team meeting plays out with the role of support employment worker. But there's an emphasis on that, and then for organizations too, the barrier might be as I kind of back up here, the organizationally there could be barriers with building consensus. We need leadership top down. We need people at the top, people at the middle, people at every level of the organization wanting to do this and seeing this as a critically important part of treatment. We want to maximize opportunities for financing, which we're going to get into. Want to look at the agency philosophy and how does it tie into work and helping people. Where's the best structure for this to be land? Is it is there a division? Are there components within the organization where it makes sense to implement support employment? It may not be the private, if you're doing private or if you're doing individual therapy, maybe that division isn't necessarily where you want to put this. Maybe you put it more with ACT or a group that's out in the community in the field doing more. What kind of technical assistance is needed in identifying that, and that's going to come up here. And as we kind of go through some of the fidelity scale and the organizational time commitment components with outcomes, we're going to talk about as well. So I'm going to move on from this. This is a great video. If you got a few minutes, it's a reflection on the team meeting and how that all kind of works with the staff participating. Maybe we could get into some benefits and work incentives, Darius. I think this is good content for people to really be kind of be able to move forward with thinking and doing this work.
Darius? Tim, I'm not hearing him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there he is. Okay, good.
Here I go. I was like, what's going on? Okay. What I wanted to say real quick before I go on about benefits is that it's a culture change. Whether whether support employment is being done at a community mental health center, an agency, a state agency, or whatever, there's a culture change that has to happen, that people have to believe that people with severe mental illness and or substance abuse issues can work. And so when the culture starts to change to believe in that, that's when the implementation really starts to get off the ground and really starts to happen. I just wanted to make sure that that's talked about. Benefits and incentives, again, we talked about it before, and it's very, very important for whatever the state or identity who's going to do the benefit planning. There's just different ways to use benefits and work incentives, of course, are paid for. Tim, I'm going to have you to page up and down. For some reason, I can't.
You should be on 45, Darius.
Okay, in-depth look at benefits and work incentives. Okay, so what I want to say, most states, benefit planning in most states is funded in several different ways. Some states have federal grants for work incentive planning and assistance grants, and that comes from the federal government. States supply, they'll get a funding stream that they can hire benefit planners, or what we call them is community work incentive coordinators, CWICs. So, you get this money, it's a grant, you apply, because Social Security Administration, of course, want people to know about their benefits, because the more people who are working and the more people who can pay into Social Security and all that kind of stuff, the better everything will be. So what ends up happening is they apply for these federal grants for work incentives, they'll get it, and they're hired CWICs. Or in some states, and I looked at the state of Florida, vocational rehab, or some states is called Department of Vocational Rehab. Some states is rehabilitation services. Your VR, they are the ones who's in charge of employment in your state, and so they are also in charge of providing benefit planning services. So if a person goes to their VR counselor, that VR counselor, whether or not if they are the benefit planner, they should be referring that person to the benefit planner to talk about their benefits and things like that. Some community mental health centers or agencies, they actually pay for their own benefit planners. So what ends up happening is, depending on how much Medicaid they pay into or how much Medicaid Part B they pay into, they use the money they get back to pay for a benefit planner. They send that person to VCU, which is Virginia Commonwealth University on the East Coast, and or Stanford University on the West Coast to take their 2-week, 3-week program to be a certified benefit planner. They come back, work under, do a CU thing under a qualified benefit planner after a year, and they become their own benefit planner. So a lot of agencies, state agencies and or community mental health centers, they'll do their own as well. In some states, not to replace an actual person, but in some states to make the benefit planning easier, there's a website that's called Disability Benefits 101 or DB 101. The states of Alaska, Arizona, California, Kentucky, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, and Ohio, they all have this database, db101.org, that people go on, they put, what their, what entitlements they already have, they put in their hours of work and what they want to do and all that kind of stuff, and it gives them an actual printout that they can, again, get informed on what they should do as far as working and things like that. And they take that printout to now the actual person, so it starts a discussion. It's all about helping a person make a wise, informed choice of, what do I need to do for my benefits? Because again, some people, they worked hard for the SSI and SSDI. Some people it's about the money. Some people it's not even about neither one of those. It's about because my medications are paid for X or Y or paid for SSI, SSDI comes out of that if they start to work and those entitlements get cut, then their medication get cut. So instead of now their medication getting paid for out of their entitlements, they now have to pay for those medications out of their own pockets. And of course, we know how much those could be. So a lot of times going to a benefit planner will give that person that information like, hey, we have a lot of programs here where you can pay $1 copay. You can still get your medication. You pay a $10 copay and still get your medications. So people who would know that, those are those benefit planners. Ticket to Work, Ticket to Work has changed since when it first came out. Ticket to Work now, they've made it a lot easier. And so some states are actually using the money that they get from Ticket to Work to fund benefit planners. I know the state of Virginia, they have over 100 benefit planners or CWICs, and they're all funded by Ticket to Work money that they have gotten back from the Ticket to Work program, from being an employment network. So these are like the different ways benefit planning happens in different states. So it's kind of up to, your state to decide, is we're going to go with VR? Should we have different kind of ways? It's a decision just that has to be talked about and be made. So going back to Ticket to Work real quick, it changed over time. It used to be, for lack of a better word, very cumbersome because there was so much paperwork involved. You had to turn in check stuff, you had to turn in this, you had to turn in so much stuff that it just became real unappealing to different agencies in different states. But now they have trimmed it down so easily now that it's really appealing. There's still the work trial period, a 9-month work trial period. If a person gets to work and they start working, then the trial period stops. If they end up not liking their job or becoming unemployed, they get expedited reinstatement, so they automatically will get their SSI and SSDI back reinstated quicker than the average time. You got protection from medical continued disability and people making that determined about it. Termination, if you should get SSI or not, it automatically happens. You automatically get the disability continuing if you have a Ticket to Work. And it's also for SSI and SRI recipients, again. So it's very, very important that people in Ticket to Work know that, they have these different rights to get their trial work period. Because, again, the number one reason why people don't want to work is they're afraid they're going to get their benefits cut. But if they know they have a Ticket to Work and they can take it to Employment Network, whether it's a business, whether it's your local VR, whether it's an agency, they can work and they can still earn their, SSI and SSDI for a period of time. So a lot of this trying to fund support employment, there's so many different ways and sustainability and scalability ways that people have to do this. Again, I was part of a program manager that we had got a SAMHSA grant in Illinois to figure out how we're going to sustain support employment. And we kind of figured it out after the 5-year grant. So different states, we're a state, as far as Illinois, we do braided funding. So a person who is on an IPS caseload, you bill Medicaid for those items that are medical necessity, and anybody can do that. And also, once a person starts working, they get money from vocational rehab funding. So they'll get milestone payments as that person works. It's different in different states. Some states, VR pays for different things before a person starts working. Some states pay for assessment and things like that. So depending on how the states work, I think your state is the actual state that pays for assessments. You get that person gets into an SE program, they get assessed to figure out what's their goals, what their abilities, to do a career profile, and they go from there. Some states have waivers. There's 2 types of waivers that most states, I won't say most states, a lot of states have in order to pay for support employment. One is the 1115 waiver, and basically that's a demonstration waiver that allows people to gather information to figure out what's the best way to service and put more people into the system to get whatever service that would be. In this case, is support employment. So they collect data on how do we serve different populations, support employment, to make sure people go back to work. Some states have a 1915B waiver. That is kind of tied to MCOs and managed care programs. So what that does is it thinks of different solutions and gives different outcomes to these MCOs as far as people working or not. So depending on what that state has, how that state is made up, with their county system, whatever, they will either do 1115 or 19B. Some states have managed care organizations. Managed care organizations say that they pay for evidence-based practices because they're research and they get definite outcomes. And these MCOs pay for definite outcomes, so there's no do I work? Yes, that's a definite outcome. So they pay. Most managed care will pay for that. If it's part of their care plan, if it's part of the state plan, and all that kind of stuff, that managed care organization will pay for evidence-based practices, including support employment. Of course, you have federal grant opportunities. That's, SAMHSA. A lot of SAMHSA grants are being created for employment opportunities for people with either substance abuse issues and or mental health issues. Some are 3-year grants, some are 5-year grants, and it is all depending on what information and what things SAMHSA is looking for to research. I know the latest round they were looking for was youth and young adults. That was the latest thing they were looking for. And of course, you have private grants. Some people like United Way. I know there's agencies in Illinois. The United Way has given them funds to do job development. So they're funding one job developer to go out in the community and find jobs for people. So different ways to fund. Wage reporting to SSI and SSDI. It's real easy for this portion to get lost and for people to forget to report their wages to SSI and SSDI. But it's so very important because this is how people gets their SSI and SSDI taken away or the entitlements changed and all that kind of stuff simply because they do not report to Social Security Administration that they're working. And there's several different ways that this can happen. This is streamlined now too. You can fax your wage gross amount. You can mail a letter saying your grade amount, telephoning your local office. Right now in this environment, your local office is probably closed. So right now, probably the top 3 ways is definitely faxing, sending the mail, or telephoning your office. There's a website also that you can go that you can report your wages and earnings as well. And they'll send you, with your email, they'll send you a receipt back saying, yes, you reported. Here's your receipt to show that you reported your earnings, blah, 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 for this month. Please make sure you report your earnings for next month. It's just very important that our employment specialists and or clinical workers help people report their earnings. Okay, Tim, you want to go back to take over how our efforts are effective?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. I was just finishing typing here. There was a question about if a person works a few years, or if they put to get to work, if they're working for, let's say they work 7 months, and then they have they take a 3 to 4 year break, and then they want to go back to work. Does it reset and they get another 9 months? And it's not. No, they wouldn't. It's a 5-year window. So if they are going to be working again, they pick up another 2 months within those 5 years, then they would that would count as part of that ticket. Anything to add there, Darius?
Yeah. No, you got it. Yeah, that's the part that's changed too. Even though things have changed for the better for less paperwork, the timing has went down now. So when they streamlined the time, now they've also streamlined the time that you can turn in and have use your 9-month work trial. So yeah.
What was the work trial when you first started in the work ticket to work time, Darius?
So it was 9 months, but you had 10 years to use your 9 months. So you had 10 years to use your 9-month work trial. And again, it doesn't have to be consecutive. It can be off and on. So if a person finds a job, go to a job, ends up they can't stay in a job and they hate the job and then they quit. Then, once they quit, the ticket to work kicks in and they'll get right back on the SSI and SSDI. What I want to say is that it's for the main purpose for that was that people have choice. And I guarantee you, this is not the first job I've had. This is job number 8. So it took me 8 times to get it right that I love my job. You know what I mean? So for that person, the first job, the second job, the third job they're going to get just like everyone else in quote unquote normal society, it's going to take them some time to figure out what is the perfect job for them. So that was in mind when this ticket to work was created, was to make sure that that person is not penalized if they're trying different careers or trying different jobs, trying to figure out what they like to do. So keep that in mind with the ticket to work, and of course with support employment. A person is going to change their mind on what they want to do. The people you're normally working with have not worked in 5, 10, 15 years. So now all of a sudden we encourage them to work and provide that hope for them to work. And so, yes, it's going to take a while for them to really figure out what job they want. And so, yes, they might do 2 jobs. Yes, they might go 3 jobs until they find out, hey, I'm at the perfect job. And they shouldn't be penalized for that. They should be congratulated for that, for finally finding the job that they want to do. So I just wanted to add that, Tim.
Yeah, I want to just, this comes up a lot. A person exhausts their 9 months and they are now a full-time, they're no longer getting Social Security because they have worked 9 months, and they're managing fine. They're making more than they would have made if they continued to receive Social Security, but they don't have the security of knowing if they stop working, they'll lose. They're going to have income. What is the process to get the employment, to get the Social Security back? How does that usually work, Darius?
So usually it's the same way. So what would happen is they would reapply again. Actually, it would be streamlined for them because they're already in the system. Even though they've got off SSI and they're now earning towards their SSDI actually if they're working. So they've got out of they start lost their job or something like that, and they need to go back on to entitlements. It would be the same process, but it would be streamlined now because most of the information should already be in. Of course, maybe an address change or, of course, age change or things like that. But the primary stuff that they're looking for should be still the same. So it's streamlined. The other thing is that because that state has already, quote unquote, back then established disability, then the process to quote unquote establish disability again should not take as long as well. So that's it's easier the second time or third time. And again, maybe another 2 or 3 years things have changed. They found another job. So it's ongoing. I think the thing that people should think and realize is that the whole process is ongoing. It's not just a point that's just going to stop and this is the way it's going to be for the rest of life until they get to the point where, hey, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, and this is where I want to be.
Awesome. Thank you. We want to touch on tracking support employment outcomes, and it's important, I think, not just for we're tracking the outcomes of the individual, we're tracking outcomes for a team, we're tracking outcomes within an organization, and then we're also tracking outcomes through our research and studies. But it helps us to make things better. It helps us to kind of evolve the practices and to improve what it is that we're doing. And so we're going to kind of talk about some best practices that we can implement at a team level, and then strategies for evaluating how we're doing. The first tip here really is to just keep evaluation, data collection, and compiling of data easy. If you have an electronic health record, or you're able to kind of enter some of what we're going to share here into that, or there's a way to pay attention to that, develop it so that you can track this, that's going to be easiest for the team because they're collecting this information, or they're entering the information, and then a report can be generated from that. It doesn't always happen that way. So, we find that just paying attention to these factors are really important. Person's name, when they became open to support employment, if they were open to the vocational rehabilitation specialist or system within the state. In our state, in Illinois, for example, we get compensated based on registering somebody with the state, and then if at the 30-day, the 60-day, the 90-day, there's compensation. So if that's not going on in your state, then that won't be there. But we want to pay attention to when the day that we first had contact with them, when they were referred open to the program, how long it took them to get hired. So how rapid was it? How fast were we able to help them get employment? If there was an end date, how long did that go on? What was the period of time in which they worked? How much did they earn? And then what were the barriers and the strengths? If the employment didn't work out, what were the factors that contributed to that? If there were strengths or some things that went really well, to kind of summarize that as well. And we want to pay attention to this at the 30-day marker, 60-day marker, 90-day marker, and just kind of see how we're doing. If we and look for trends, look for patterns. If we're finding that there's a number of things that we're helping a lot of people get employment at the 30-day. We're helping people get employment within 30 days, but they're 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 not making it to 60 days. Well, then there's a trend there, and we see a lot of that happening. Well, maybe it wasn't the right fit. Maybe we need to be kind of taking a step back and really exploring with people what it is that they want to do. If we find that people are making it 60 days, but not necessarily to 90 days, maybe we want to look at the employer and what's going on there. They've managed to make it 60 days, so they've probably been able to make it there on time and learn some of the basics for the job, and are implementing, and experiencing there. I'm not saying that's always the case, but these are just things that we want to pay attention to. What are the trends? Maybe that's not it. Maybe there's other things. But over time, look at, like, take this data and kind of look at what are some of the strengths, what are some of the barriers, what happens at that 60-day mark of, the people that are not, what are we noting for people that end their job within 60 days? What are we noting if they end their job within 90 days past that? Paying attention to those trends, learning and seeing as we go, and taking some responsibility for what might not be working. And maybe there's some things we can be doing at the team level, or that may provide better success. Reasons for terminations, emphasis on how preferences are being met over time. There's just some other data that we're looking at in terms of trends. Um, and talk to the support employment people delivering the service too, and what are they seeing? Supervisors, what are they seeing? Anything to add on this, Darius? Anything that you would say is really important in terms of how we use this data to inform and improve what we're doing?
Yeah, just data is important because it just shows how over time a program grows, and how people over time gets work. How do you improve your program in order to get more people working? And so when you start to collect these different data items and elements, you get to see trends. You get to see, why are some people getting a lot of job starts but not making 30 days? Why are a lot of people getting job starts making 30 days, but they can't go from 30 to 60 days, or things like that? And you start to see trends that happen. You start to see, for instance, for the two items I just said, a person normally doesn't make 30 days probably because it's not the job that they like. So better vocational profile, better vocational profiles, I should say, career profiles should help to make sure that person is trying to find a job that they like to do and they want to do. If a person's falling off between 30 days and 90 days, it might be because that the follow-along supports are not there like they should be. And so what's happening is the employment specialist may or may not be getting the proper, given the proper support that he or she should be. And so maybe follow-on support should be more intensive. Trends tell us the story a lot, and it tells how good or how bad your program is. So it's very important.
Thank you. We also want to kind of touch on this is a link here to the fidelity scale, and for supported employment. And there's three main components to it. I'm going to ask Darius to kind of touch on these, and then we're going to summarize and so I know we're approaching just a few minutes more, but we'd like, if you can stay on, please do. We'd like to finish this, and I know that Karina has a couple of things to follow up on as well, but we're going to get through this right now. So
real quick, staffing. Staffing is basically how is your program structured with the staff you have as far as employment specialists and what they do. Organization is basically how your organization is structured. So is your organization structured in order to support supported employment? Do you have the proper networks around? Do you have the proper clinical teams that's involved? Is your CO involved? Is your leadership involved? Does the agency have buy-in? And then services is basically how you perform those services in support employment. Do you job develop? How many times you go out and job development? Do you talk about, there's a question about disclosure. Do you talk about his disclosure and what the disclosure means as far as going out and job developing on behalf of somebody? All those items you collect data as far as job starts and where does people work, who's the employer, is this competitive employment place, how much you spend in the community. All those are under services. So look at it's a 25 scale item that breaks down into staffing, organizational services, and look at that and it'll give you more idea of it's really the roadmap of how you do support employment.
And this tool is used initially to kind of help an organization or a team, even if it's starting at a team level, to kind of ramp it up, to build in some of the structures, to build in some of the the practice, and annually or every 6 months you can decide how it goes. Typically early on, Darius, would be every 6 months. How often you do the fidelity is you basically would, your state will have somebody that will come out, or you'll have somebody that can come out and just kind of help you with implementing this, and then teams can help one another with implementing it too, and organizations can help one another with implementing it as well. But it's important, this emphasis on collaboration, this emphasis on working together can be very helpful. There's probably about 26, maybe 30 states right now that have supported employment collaboratives, and these supported employment collaboratives are really essential, I think, in helping a new organization kind of plug in, and then also to kind of just systematically address barriers and address what's going to help best facilitate this forward movement. Anything further to comment on the collaborative efforts that you've seen, Darius?
No, I mean it's just states collaborate with each other, and then other nations now collaborative with other nations, including us, United States, on just how to do support employment. And so it's just important that the most important thing to take away is that you're not alone. So once you become a provider, realize you're not alone, and you're not the only person doing this model. There's people who've done it and been to the same things as you've done as well.
And lessons learned. I think having been part of programs that implement supported employment, and I know Darius is a person that's led the charge in terms of implementing, in terms of helping on the ground, and then helping teams and organizations implement supported employment. What are some of the most critical things I think are just important for remembering here as we end?
Yes, just the most important thing is that you have to instill hope in people that they can work and they can be successful. That will help tremendously on somebody's enthusiasm on what they can do to work. So just that portion about hope and yes, you can do this, and yes, you can work. Our mind of what work is, 40 hours a week and things like that, is not necessarily what everyone else's mind of work is. Someone else's mind might be 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. So we have to get rid of our biases and help that other person realize with their goals and what they want to do that they can work and they can be successful in the community. That's most important.
Excellent. The other thing I'll add to is that if you're already doing fidelity, or you're already doing supported employment, the fidelity assessment tool can really help with fine tuning and moving it forward. If that's something that you have the capacity to take on, it can be a very helpful process and tool. So I saw a comment that some people weren't able to get the links at the bottom of the slides. I'll let Karina address that, but I know they're on the slides, so I don't know if it's how it's showing, but the HTTP or the internet sites, they're if you cut and paste those, you should be able to get to the source for more information. But in closing, Darius and I just want to we're just grateful for the opportunity to present with you today, to be with you today. And we know how important it is, the work that you're doing, and the we're part of a lot of this work going on in the communities up here in Chicago as well. And so we know how important it is to be connecting with people and to be doing this essential work, life-saving work. We close by saying that we are finding that support employment can continue in this COVID-19 environment, that a lot of the work that we talked about today can be done remotely. It can be done through phone and chatting and text messaging, follow-up phone calls, and connecting with employers, to the greatest extent possible. New people can be intaked into the programs, job explorations and job searches. And a lot of what we've discussed can be done remotely. We're so used to always doing it in person, but for the first times now, we're doing it more remotely. The financial challenges that we discussed can be explored and addressed as well. So there's still opportunity for so much of this, and the hope again that Darius referenced, the conveying of hope and that movement. I think that it can kind of provide people momentum really as they kind of move forward in recovery. The work is a driver there, and an important one. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for your and all the best to everyone. Thanks so much. And thank you, Karina, and the Florida Alcohol Drug Abuse Association for bringing us all together today.
No, we
thank you so much,
appreciate you. We appreciate both of you for presenting. We've had so much interest in this topic and questions galore. I've actually copied them, and so some of the ones that we weren't able to get to, maybe we can address them later in email to the participant. But
Sure.
we've also posted
Sure.
resources that people have shared. If you weren't able to select the all participants, I did share it in the panel along with the YouTube links. And I will have that available. If you didn't catch that, you can certainly email me after the webinar. As far as the presentation and recording, we will have that posted. We try to have it up, we say within 30 days. We try to have it up sooner than that. So again, we do appreciate you guys taking your time out to present this information to us. And if you guys could hold on, the attendees, if you could hold on for some other business issues to address your CEUs, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Tim and Darius.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
When I conclude today's webinar, your browser will take you to an evaluation on FADA's new website. If you want to receive CE credits or a statement of credit for this event, please complete the evaluation. You will be prompted to register or sign in to complete the evaluation. You can register as a visitor at no cost. For CEs to be reported to CE Broker for Florida licensed healthcare practitioners, you must provide an accurate Florida Department of Health license prefix and number the first time you register. After you register or sign in, you will be directed onward to the evaluation. You may consider using the same email address when you register for webinars through our WebEx link. And when you set up your profile in FADA's system, this helps connect your attendance, and your profile. Just wanted to make it clear, when you register an event, that does not automatically create your profile with FADA. So you will need to set up a separate profile with our website. You will get a second opportunity to complete the evaluation through a follow-up email later today. In about 30 minutes, the sender will be Messenger at WebEx. The evaluation will close at midnight on Friday, May the 8th. We do not email statements of credit. Instead, we verify attendance and completion of the evaluation. A statement of credit will be generated as a journal entry within your profile. And again, we would like to thank you for participating in today's webinar. We'd also like to recognize and thank especially the Florida Department of Children and Families, Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health for funding today's education. Have a great rest of your day, and please hold for the evaluation. Thank you.